All right, so I'm dedicating this episode of Bluntzilla Video to our good friend Danny B at the Trash Stash, who is just put out this cool ass video of him doing a time lapse of this art project he was working on of Charles Bronson from Death Wish 3. Looks great, man. I love it. So, Trash Stash, this is for you, buddy. We're gonna be taking a look at all 5 Death Wish films. I'm gonna give my quick little opinion on each of them. We'll go from there. So, starting right off the bat with Death Wish 1, starring Charles Bronson, we have a man who is an architect, Paul Kersey, and his wife and his daughter, they go to a grocery store, and this is back in those days. Like, I never had this. Like, I don't ever remember any of this type of shit happening, but, like, delivery grocery service, like, just, I don't know, just crazy. Like, you're at the grocery store, and then you just leave your shit there, and someone brings it to your house. I mean, that's pretty decent, I guess, but basically Jeff Goldblum and his 2 like little sidekicks, they follow, or they get the address off the grocery bag. They go to Charles Bronson's house and they proceed to rape and do very bad fallacious things to the family of Paul Kersey, and the wife ends up dying and the daughter ends up being like totally fucked up from the incident, like traumatized, all that kind of shit. You don't see her for the rest of the film, but Charles Bronson basically he fucks off. He leaves. I think he's like starts off in Chicago, but he ends up going to New York, and that's where he ends up. He never ends up getting Jeff Goldblum or those goons, but he just starts taking out these scumbags, like these greasy sons of bitches. He becomes a vigilante, and he's the vigilante in my opinion. There actually is a film named Vigilante you should probably check out with Robert Forster, but goddamn, this is such a good movie. Like, my favorite scene in this film is Jeff Goldblum beating the shit out of that broad, saying, "Goddamn rich cunt, I kill rich cunts." Like, I love that scene. It's so brutal and hardcore and very exploitation-y. Like this Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Thriller, They Call Her One Eye, like are like your spectrum of like crazy, fucked up exploitation-y type films. I love it, man. This is the type of movie that you don't watch with your family. You watch through closed doors, and like this movie, I would say is the most tame of the five films. Which is insane. Like, it's one of the best as well. It's a lot of people's favorite. My favorite is personally the next film, but yeah, we'll leave it at that. Death Wish is a movie you need to check out if you want to get into this kind of messed up revenge films. Like, it's a good gateway drug, and plus you get Charles Bronson, who's just a beast. Moving on to, I've talked about this before, Death Wish 2, my favorite Death Wish of the series. You got Lawrence Fishburne coming as one of the assholes. You got the dude who was Rafter Man in Full Metal Jacket. He's one of the assholes as well. He's the guy that says that he believes in Jesus before Bronson blows him away. So basically the story of this is Paul Kersey, he just gets his daughter out of an institution after she was like, after the events of the first film left her pretty fucked up. So she's still pretty messed up. And he's on an outing with his new girlfriend and the daughter. And during their outing, Paul Kersey gets fucking mugged by these assholes, and these assholes get his ID, so now they know where he lives. And basically, Paul's at work, the daughter and her, like the housekeeper, are at the home alone, and the house gets ransacked, and the daughter is, first of all, the housekeeper's totally fucking just raped, like to no end. It's hard to watch. It's sick and twisted shit, but what happens to them is worth seeing what you have to see. It's crazy seeing Fishburne in such a sleazy role. You usually see him in more of a, kind of a, if you look at a movie like Higher Learning, he's like this sophisticated kind of professor guy. You look at Boys in the Hood, he's this very wise kind of fatherly figure. In this, he's like, all fucking bets are off. He's a scumbag. But basically, Charles Bronson shows up right at the end of this shit happening. His daughter gets taken. His daughter eventually gets used as like this sex slave, and then she kills herself in a very brutal scene where she jumps out of a window onto a fucking fence, and it's gross. But of course, Bronson, he goes after all these assholes. He gets all of them, which is great in various ways. Lawrence Fishburne gets one of the most cool kills. He gets shot through a stereo. It's like a death by stereo kind of thing, like Lost Boys type shit. So yeah, this is my favorite. It's the most, to me, it's the most realistic after the first one, because after this, I think it just starts getting pretty crazy. But it kind of tames back down. But Death Wish 2 is great fucking fun. Next, we're going to move on to a lot of people's favorite in the series, and that is Death Wish 3. Death Wish 3 is basically an all bets are off kind of thing. Bronson ends up going to this apartment complex, and he's kind of, I don't really remember if he knows the guy that lives there. Like, there's a guy that he kind of becomes buddy with, and it's all about this gang that's taken over this neighborhood. And Bronson, he starts implementing these very homemade like styles of, booby trapping, or just surveilling, like leaving surveillance, like basically like sentry guns without them being sentry guns. So he rigs a window, he rigs all kinds of shit. There's tons of bullets in this. There's like a gang in this film that's like an actual like uniformed kind of gang, as opposed to just being like a bunch of like random dudes. Like, they all kind of wear the same attire. Another dude from one of the Full Metal Jacket films is in this. I forget his name, but he's the guy that's talking to Joker about them being really bored before the Tet ceasefire thing happens. He's in this film. He plays like this laughing cocksucker guy. Great fun. There is a scene where he's in prison in this, and I'd said, and I'd fucked myself up recently because, well, for the longest time, I thought this was the film where Bronson was in prison. Turns out, I don't even think there is a film that I'm thinking of. I don't think it was Bronson at all. It had to have been someone else, but we'll get to that pretty soon. This is the kind of film that is as bonkers as it gets. There's so many messed up side characters. Like, the gang itself is ridiculous, and like everything they do is completely fucked. Bronson, he does get this. Oh, it's the Giggler. They call that guy the Giggler. So the guy from Full Metal Jacket, they call him the Giggler. Bronson blows his ass away. Death Wish 3, man. I know why. I can understand why people think it's the best or consider it their favorite, but I think they pretty much go like this for me. It goes part 2, part 1, part 3, and then it goes in order from there. So we'll move along from Death Wish 3, a classic. So Death Wish 4, The Crackdown, titled appropriately because the Crackdown is basically what this film is about. It's about Bronson is with this new girl, and she has a daughter, and she ends up smoking some crack, and she ODs, and Bronson goes fucking ballistic because he's been through this bullshit before, and he's basically used by this cocksucker who's posing as like this dude who's just really wealthy that had his daughter murdered or something. And he uses Charles Bronson to get these two mafia families to think that each other's fucking with each other, if you know what I mean. And basically, after it's all said and done, when they're done needing Bronson, they try to kill Bronson. And Bronson's like, no. And he does what he does best. And of course, his girlfriend interest, you think she's going to live? Nope, she dies. And yeah, this is a really goddamn good one. I don't think it's nearly as good as part 2, 3, or 1, but it is really entertaining. And there's some really good deaths. Like, there's like a scene where there's like a bumper car thing exhibit at like a carnival where this guy gets thrown on top of it and he gets shocked to shit. There's a scene at like a disco ring. There's a scene in this film where he's at a goddamn video store and he walks past a Texas Chainsaw Massacre thing, like a standee. It's awesome. Arcade shit, roller derby shit. I think it ends at a roller derby, but my God, great film. These are all good in their own way. You know what I mean? The Death Wish films. He's definitely still looks badass, and we're going to use that as a segue to go into this. Part 5. Did Bronson get the Botox? Is the question with this one. I think he did, but nonetheless, it's great because this movie is all about Charles Bronson once again reprising his role as Paul Kersey, and he's basically I can't remember his goddamn name, but I think it's Michael Park or something like that. But Michael Park plays this ex-husband of Bronson's new girlfriend, and they have a daughter together. So basically, when the wife is all messed up and sort of gets fucked up, not murdered yet, the daughter ends up. Well, she eventually gets killed, and then the daughter goes to the asshole, and then Bronson's trying to get his stepdaughter back. And it's great because you got the fucking weirdo face dude from the Hills Have Eyes remake is in this film as like a cross-dressing, dandruff scratching fucking lunatic. I believe, Michael Parks, he is the main bad guy. And there's like these two like Italian brothers who are just totally bombastic. Like, I actually think that this one's better than part 4 now that I think about it, because I love those two brothers, and I love the Robert Joy character. He's really good. He's also in Land of the Dead and he's also in he's in quite a few other films. But yeah, Faces of Death, Death Wish 5. I haven't ever marathoned all these films like that ever before, so it's quite the experience. I think I've got my Charles Bronson fix for a while, but I do have a slew of other films. I'll just read off the titles for you. I got 10 to Midnight, The Mechanic, Mr. Majestic, Death Hunt, Cold Sweat, Hard Times, Family of Cops, The Evil That Men Do, Soldier of Fortune, Someone Behind the Door, Guns of Diablo, Chino, Messenger of Death, and Honor Among Thieves. So no shortage of Bronson to watch. And with that being said, I appreciate everybody for watching. Check out the Facebook page, the Instagram links will be in the description, and adios.